Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we are looking at one of the absolute most fascinating transformations in Indian history, the rise of the Marathas. We're going to unpack exactly how a regional group from the Deccan Plateau rose up to become the largest pan-Indian power right before the British era. So get comfortable and let's jump right in. To really understand the stakes of this era, let's set this scene with this incredible quote written in 1715 by Ramachandra Pant Amatya, a really key Maratha minister. It serves as a stark warning about the European powers, or as he brilliantly called them, the hat wearers. He was talking about the Portuguese, English, Dutch, French, and Danes. He recognized super early on that they weren't just innocent merchants. They were obstinate, armed with navy and gunpowder, and fully intent on expanding their territory. This completely sets the stage. The Marathas weren't just fighting local rivals, They were navigating a rapidly changing, really dangerous world. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Who were the Marathas? 2. Masters of the forts. 3. Maratha warfare and weapons. And 4. Culture, governments, and legacy.
Let's kick things off with part 1. Who were the Marathas? So, who exactly are we talking about here? Basically, the term Marathas refers to a group of people native to the Deccan Plateau, specifically in what is present-day Maharashtra. The main defining characteristic that tied this group together was their language, Marathi. But it is super important to understand that they didn't just suddenly appear out of thin air in the 17th century. They had deep, deep roots in this region. The expansive, rugged terrain of the Deccan Plateau completely shaped their way of life. And culturally? Well, the Marathi language they spoke boasts a really rich continuous literary history. We're talking the development of prose and poetry dating all the way back to the 12th century. They had this incredibly distinct cultural identity long before they ever forged an empire. And talk about a meteoric political rise. Back in the 13th century, this region was mostly ruled by the Yadava dynasty from their capital at Devagiri. But the real turning point, that comes in 1630 with the birth of Chhatrapati Shivaji. By 1657, he formally laid the foundation of the Maratha Empire. I mean, in just a few decades, they went from being subjects of regional powers to establishing a state that would literally alter the course of India's history forever. Moving right along to part 2, Masters of the Forts. Picture the grand entrance to the palace at Brigade Fort in Maharashtra. This isn't just any stone building. This is the very site where Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was crowned in 1674. That coronation was a huge deal because it marked the formal, undeniable beginning of their sovereign power. The sheer scale of that solid stone construction just screams ambition and permanence, doesn't it? But it wasn't just about building grand, pretty palaces. It was about brilliant military engineering. They built directly into the rugged, mountainous terrain of the Deccan. They didn't fight the geography. They completely weaponized it. The steep cliffs and jagged peaks basically became natural, impenetrable walls. These forts were an absolute nightmare for invading armies to try and besiege. The crucial takeaway here is that forts were the absolute beating heart of the Maratha state. Just as the finance minister Ramachandra Pant Amatya explained in his royal edict, Chhatrapati Shivaji built and controlled this vast network of forts for a very specific reason. They were strategically essential to control trade and military routes. Plus, they provided the ultimate shelter for the Maratha army, allowing them to retreat, resupply, and launch devastating guerrilla attacks against much larger, slower-moving enemies. Which brings us to part 3, Maratha warfare and weapons. When it came to combat, their traditional arsenal was amazingly diverse. We're talking everything from long matchlock rifles to uniquely curved swords, specialized polearms, and daggers with handguards. This definitely wasn't a standard one-size-fits-all army. Their gear was highly specialized for close-quarters combat and swift, lethal strikes, perfectly suited for that mountainous terrain we just talked about. And that perfectly transitions into exactly how they used those weapons. You know the modern concept of a surgical strike, a military attack intended to damage only a legitimate target with minimal collateral damage? Well, your textbook explicitly draws a connection here, because the Marathas were early masters of this. Their guerrilla warfare wasn't about massive chaotic field battles. It was all about precision, speed, and hitting the enemy exactly where it hurt the most, right before vanishing back into their mountain forts. Finally, let's look at part 4, culture, governance, and legacy. Running a massive empire obviously requires a massive amount of administration. Enter the Modi script. It's a cursive form of Devanagari, and it became the primary script used by the Marathas for their official correspondence. This swift, flowing script allowed their clerks and ministers to efficiently manage the day-to-day operations of a sprawling state without missing a beat. And their governance was remarkably principled for the era. For example, while operating in the south, Chhatrapati Shivaji actively forbade the Dutch from trading slaves. While other powers just turned a blind eye, he actually stepped in to protect his subjects from European abuse. This moral stance totally inspired his successors too. The Bonsles of Nagpur enthusiastically supported local traditions, and the Marathas were instrumental in reviving the worship of the deity Jagannath at Puri, in Odisha, which had been interrupted during Mughal rule. So they weren't just conquerors, they were genuine patrons of local culture. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this critical thinking question pulled straight from the source material. What do you think was the Marathas' most important contribution to Indian history? Was it their military innovation and those incredible forts, their protection of local traditions, or maybe their resistance against European colonial powers? Think about all the evidence we've covered today and form your own conclusion. And that does it for today's chapter analysis. If you want to truly master this material and ace your exams, be sure to check out the description below. You can buy our comprehensive study bundles right from the link down there to help you retain all of this amazing history. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Keep learning, and I will catch you in the next explainer.